nice article in the Managing Madrid blog. Wonderful lads that do a great job there. And worth reading about that man there. Karim Benzema needs to rest, and the numbers reveal why.
Times ended up almost looking like a 6-3-1. Some very good writing about that on the Managing Madrid website. First rate podcast as well. Of course, Fede Valverde was a huge part of the equation.
Hello and welcome to the Managing Madrid Podcast. It is the day before the Madrid derby at the Metropolitano. Is going to be fireworks tomorrow night. And for now, it is the peaceful calm before the storm. We play Atletico Madrid a couple times a year at least, sometimes more if there's a Champions League battle, as there was last year. And certainly that was obviously fireworks as well. And we try to each time, or at least, as much as we can, collaborate with our friends over on Into the Calderon, our sister site over on sbnation.com. They do an amazing job covering Atletico Madrid. They have a podcast called That Atleti Podcast. They basically just cover Atletico full time. If you're interested in that, please go and subscribe. The plan is we're going to do about 20 minutes, and we're live on YouTube here to look at the Atletico side of things mostly. We're going to find out more about Atletico Madrid. And then if you're interested in the Real Madrid side, go to That Atleti Podcast later today, and I'm going to be doing a segment on their podcast. So, long rambling intro. I apologize. Jeremy Beren is here. Jeremy, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic for now. Things are going well. I'd like to start here, Jeremy. It's kind of not neither here nor there, but I saw your tweet maybe the day that Real Madrid beat. Oh my God, why is my brain broken? Who did we play last game that we beat?
Was it Levante a couple of days ago?
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. You said that Real Madrid are going to win La Liga and it's not going to be close. And I just wanted to unpack that a little bit because I don't necessarily disagree with the idea that Real Madrid are going to be fighting for the title and they become champion, but I was kind of surprised at your implied dismissal of Barcelona, who look still very good to me. So I just wanted to know where you actually stand on that. Did you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, I guess I was being 10% provocative.
Yes.
Maybe a little bit of a provocateur, as we all can be on social media sometimes.
Fair.
But I don't know, man. I don't feel that Barcelona were able to reinforce as much as, well, certainly not as much as Real Madrid, but certainly not as much as they wanted to, right? We had the Nico Williams rumors, the Luis Diaz rumors. Neither of those players came. Instead, plan C arrives in the form of Marcus Rashford. Joan Garcia was a great signing. I don't know how they convinced an Espanyol player to jump ship for FC Barcelona, but they're playing at the B Team Stadium. Gavi's just suffered another long-term injury. I think that the depth and the injury concerns are there. It's an election year at Barca. Things get crazy politically at that club during this time. I don't know. I think the conditions were there for them last year that are not there for them this year and are there for Real Madrid. It's just kind of how I feel at this early stage.
I do think from a depth standpoint, Real Madrid are just deeper. But Flick has this superpower, it seems, to get anyone to play well, including Rashford. Yeah. So I'm cautiously optimistic about it. But I mean, for us, the biggest test of the season so far is tomorrow night at the Metropolitano, a stadium that is quite literally hell for Real Madrid, regardless of the form of either of these teams. Even 2 years ago, when Real Madrid were very strong and won the double, the only team they lost against was, of course, Atletico Madrid. So a constant thorn on the side. I've been tracking Atletico Madrid as best as I can. It's been a rough start to the season for you guys, but just our luck. You're coming off the back of a W and Julian Alvarez going into superhero mode. What is the general mood heading into this from the Atletico standpoint?
I would say very, very cautious optimism. It has been a rough start, Kiyan. Atletico have dealt with a ton of injuries. This is off the back of another summer of, for Atletico's level, pretty exorbitant spending. The club has been very busy the last 2 summers, as we know. They've turned over 2/3 of the squad in the last 12 months, which is it's a very difficult thing to pull off. It's an even more difficult challenge to get all these new pieces to interact and play well together. A task made even more challenging when a guy like Alex Baena, the star signing from this summer, has played only 60 minutes this season. Thiago Almada is injured. Johnny Cardoso is injured. Those 3 players were expected to be key contributors from the jump at Atletico de Madrid this season. So Atletico have suffered from some really bad luck. It takes Atletico a lot to score and very little to concede. I think the stat I saw entering the Rayo game was that Atletico had scored 6 goals from 63 shots through the first 5 rounds. And for a team that is dominating the ball like Atletico are, so unusual for a Diego Simeone side, right? We talk all the time about how Cholo is so defensive, he's this and that, but Atletico are an elite possession side among teams in the top 5 leagues at this early stage in the season. So good signs are there. Atletico are dominating possession and playing with a higher line than ever before under Simeone, utilizing a high press in a way they never really have before, but some bad luck in attack and a pretty weak defense, especially in transition, especially in box defending. And that's why Atletico are 8th in the table right now, entering El Derby.
59.5% possession at rolling average this season, which puts Atletico 3rd in the league behind Barca and Real Madrid. The defense, someone had asked us on the Churros podcast, like, what's going on with Atletico? And, is it time of the annual discussion of like, is it time for Simeone to be moved on? This is like an annual discussion, right?
Yeah.
And I was just like looking at the roster difference between Atletico Madrid this season and that of like peak Atletico of like 2014, 15, 16. And I'm like, there's, as great as Simeone has been for the club, there's no one he can call Diego Godin in the squad, or Filipe Luis, or even Juan Fran and whoever else I'm forgetting about. Like, these guys are just no longer there. And like, they were some of the best defenders in La Liga history. And so, you just guys just don't have that right now. So I just wanted to kind of flip it back to you. How does Atletico defend tomorrow? Where are you on Atletico's defense in general? Are you optimistic? Are you kind of a little bit worried about the names that are back there? Where do you stand on that?
I mean, logic dictates that I should be worried. I mean, Clement Lenglet is possibly, if not probably, going to start tomorrow. And Lenglet I've kind of likened him to the French Mario Hermoso. He makes 1 to 3 crippling mistakes every game that seem to end in goals, but otherwise he's flawless. But it speaks to, I'm using Lenglet as an example. It speaks to the lack of, I guess, confidence that El Cholo has in some of the options back there. Atletico really needed a defensive leader, like someone like Cuti Romero, who was linked pretty strongly with Atletico for most of the summer, ended up renewing with Spurs. That was kind of a gut punch, not to bring in Romero as part of this big summer restructuring that the club ended up doing. On the other hand, El Derby kind of exists in a vacuum. You know this as well as I do, Kiyan, is that whenever Real Madrid go to the Metropolitano, we rain hell on them, as we should, right? And I think that El Cholo can inspire and motivate and get the best out of these players against Real Madrid. You mentioned 2 years ago when Real Madrid won the double, the only team they lost to was that Atletico side. One of the worst Atleti sides under Simeone, a team that was lucky to finish in the top 4, honestly. So I think this team, last year's team, was better than that team. This year's team, I think, is trending in an even more positive direction. And with the form that Julian Alvarez is in, it just may not matter. Like, Alvarez right now is in God mode. He's in superstar mode. And if it's going to be a showdown of Alvarez and Kylian Mbappe, that's going to be one superstar may end up deciding the game. One incredible moment of quality could end up deciding a game that I could see getting pretty chaotic and pretty open in the second half, especially given some of those weaknesses that Atleti probably aren't going to be able to root out in terms of box defending and in terms of transition defending.
From one superstar to the next, if Alvarez is in God mode, how would you describe Griezmann this season?
He's off the pace, man. And it's sad because Griezmann is a legend at this club.
Yeah.
But he's been stuck on 198 goals since February. He hasn't scored a league goal in almost 8 months. And that's unconscionable for a player of this quality, this caliber, this reputation. Griezmann is in kind of a weird spot. I was surprised that he renewed. I was surprised that he stayed. I think the prevailing thinking throughout last season was that Griezmann was going to be here to help usher in a new era, the Alvarez era, and Alvarez is going to take over the baton entering this season. But instead, Griezmann has accepted another salary reduction, and he's accepted a bench role. In light of the signings and the players who have come in, Griezmann has been playing a bit more than I think was intended, given Baena and Almada haven't been healthy. But I see him as a player who is in the twilight of his elite football career. I mean, he's 34. He can't go forever. He has a lot of miles on that odometer, man. And he's looked serviceable in a few different contexts this season. He played well in our win over Villarreal, a lot of great defensive work, great defensive contribution, but the brain is still there. The intelligence is still there. The technique is still there, but the legs just aren't. And that happens.
What is Baena's status right now?
He'll be in the squad.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll start so what happened to Baena was he suffered a muscle injury in our first game when we lost to Espanyol. Right as he was about to come back, he had an emergency procedure for appendicitis, and that knocked him out for another 3 weeks. So he was in the squad against Rayo. The plan was for him to get minutes against Rayo, but because that game was so chaotic, Simeone didn't play him. I guess it depends on how Saturday's game goes, but I expect him to get a few minutes at least. He might not start, but he should play. Fingers crossed.
And Marcos Llorente, is he going to be deployed right back or is he going to go into midfield?
My boy, I think he's going to play in midfield. I mean, just the start to the season, he is off to, man. He's in 2020 mode. You know, when he first got called up to Spain, when he helped Atletico win the league the last time, Simeone started the season playing him at right back, but given the form that he's been in going forward, you can't play him there. So I think it'll be an opportunity, perhaps, for Marc Pubil to make his first start for the club in El Derby. Llorente, just with Baena and Almada and Johnny still out, players who are so key to maintaining our structure, Llorente has to attack the box. He just has to.
How, actually, before that, I'm going to give you some numbers. I think this will give you some optimism, but I just wanted to see what your thoughts are on this. Expected goals this season. Atletico 12.48. They've only scored 9 goals. Expected goals against 5.4, and you've conceded 7. You actually have the second best defense in the league behind Athletic Club when it comes to expected goals against. All that to say, is there some bad luck in the finishing, some bad luck in the goals you're conceding? Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, there has certainly been some bad luck. Alvarez kind of had a slow start after he scored the free kick against Espanyol to start the season. Then he went quiet for a few rounds, and it kind of culminated in the draw at Mallorca when he was substituted on the hour. The cameras got him saying, "Siempre a mí, it's always me." And then he scores the hat trick on Wednesday. That kind of makes those numbers look a little bit better, but hopefully, as you're intimating, portends things to come. The stats and the metrics say, yeah, Atletico remain a very good defensive side. That's what the stats say. We don't concede very many chances at all, but every big chance that the defense concedes goes in. I don't think Oblak has been quite vintage Jan Oblak this season. I think this has happened before, especially in recent years, as Atletico have just cycled through a number of defenders, most of them acquired on the cheap. A lack of confidence, a lack of belief in the players around him. I just get the sense that Oblak doesn't feel entirely secure and entirely comfortable behind this defense. And Lenormand and Lenglet, I think fans have been kind of harsh on them, maybe a little harsh on them. I can offer a kind of a soft defense of those two players. Like, they're part of the reason why Atletico's high line, 37 meters on average away from Oblak, is the second highest in the league. But when they lose the ball and when they're forced to scramble back in transition or defend in the area, it's just a disaster. And I don't know how Oblak can be confident in those kinds of situations. So it's definitely some bad luck. Absolutely. And that, given how good a goalkeeper Oblak is, that will reverse and regress over the course of the season. But, hopefully that starts on Saturday, man. From my perspective, hopefully that starts tomorrow.
Hopefully not. But, I do not have fond memories from the Metropolitano. So, I really, my expectations are a little bit low, although I've really been encouraged with Xabi Alonso this season, the way the team is set up. So I'd like to ask you, when you see Xabi Alonso's Real Madrid this season, obviously a very different team than last season in terms of the way they approach their ideologies and all that stuff, and the amount of players that are being used. What worries you the most when it comes to them getting to the Metropolitano tomorrow? Let's pretend like, obviously it's going to be a factor, the stadium and the atmosphere, all that stuff. But from a pure footballing standpoint, you look at Alonso's Real Madrid and you look at Simeone's Atletico. What would worry you looking at that matchup?
Whoever starts at left back taking on Mastantuono, or trying to slow down Mastantuono, who just looks to be getting better each game. Atletico have had a revolving door at left back to start this season. David Hansko has played there. Matteo Ruggeri, new signing from Atalanta, has played there. Javi Galan is still here. He's played there. Simeone isn't really sure who his best left back is. Well, I think his best left back is probably his best center back, Hansko, and that's not a sustainable situation. So whoever takes on Mastantuono and has that showdown with Mastantuono on that flank, it's gonna be a challenge. Or Rodrigo, whatever Rodrigo's role is going to be tomorrow. I would also be looking. We need to keep an eye on Arda Güler. Güler's been has been in tremendous form to start this season, living up to that just incredible potential that he had when y'all bought him. Xabi Alonso has just breathed new life into him. This system really suits him. So keeping track of his movement and detecting where he is at all times, I think it could hamper our creativity and the possession-based style that we have been implementing if we can't grab this game by the scruff of the neck immediately and try to pin Real Madrid back as much as we can. Because I think Real Madrid do have a little bit of vulnerability defensively. I think there is still a sense or an element of this, not softness necessarily, but in front of Courtois, there's maybe a chance that we can attack those spaces in behind Housen. Who's going to start next to Housen tomorrow? Because it was Carreras against Levante.
Well, I think it's going to be Militao, and I think that was basically Alonso. The last couple lineups have been pretty funky.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah, in the last game, I think it was like just a lot of rotation. The entire bench. I mean, the bench was crazy. It was Tchouaméni, Bellingham, Militao, Carvajal, and Camavinga, and whoever else I'm forgetting. So which is like also like when you mention Mastantuono and Güler, it's kind of interesting because if those are the two players you're worried about, you're not wrong to feel that way. But there's this discussion of like, now that Bellingham is back, when he does start, it's probably one of those two players who are going to hit the bench. And regardless of who it is, I don't think if they do hit the bench, they're not going to be starving for playing time. They're still going to get a lot of playing time regardless. But it is interesting. Mastantuono, I feel like, despite being a player that has never played in a Madrid derby before, it feels like he's kind of built for a Madrid derby. I just feel like he's gonna it just kind of suits the energy that he plays with. But yeah, it'll be interesting. One last question, because we are going to switch over to your podcast soon. Let's flip the scenario. So, when you watch this Real Madrid play, and you kind of did touch on it a little bit, so so it might have to be something new you're going to come up with, because you mentioned that you can exploit and give Courtois some tests in the defense. There's still some holes to be exploited. What's the thing that you like circle? You'd be like, this Xabi Alonso Real Madrid, they're good, but that's their Achilles heel. Like, that's how Simeone has to exploit it. Like, that's what they have to do. Like, what is that one thing?
It's going to be very interesting, man, because the last time we played a Xabi Alonso team, it wasn't that long ago. It was in January when Leverkusen came to the Metropolitano. And it was kind of funny because we gave them 70% of the ball. Pablo Barrios suffered an early red card, and we fell behind. Alvarez scored a second half brace to win the game.
That's right. Yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure how much of that. how much of that is repeatable given the early red card kind of changed everything. But the game was trending already in that direction where Atletico were going to have to suffer, where Atletico were not going to have a ton of the ball. And that was a pretty different Atletico. Even though it was only 8 months ago, it was a pretty different Atletico without several of these new pieces and without a player like Pablo Barrios in a more advanced role. I guess the guy I'm going to be looking for in this game is Barrios, who I think I'm such a big Pablo Barrios fan. I think he is the best academy player we have had since, I guess since the early days of Saul, but he's more similar to Koke than Saul Niguez was. This is a great test for Barrios. This is the kind of game, El Derby, in a game that Atletico, if Atletico win, can really serve as a springboard for the rest of this season. This is a game where I'm looking for Pablo Barrios to take it by the scruff of the neck, to direct and dominate and orchestrate the team's play. He's had kind of a new role this season, kind of taking on some of Rodrigo De Paul's duties since De Paul left. He's playing in a much more advanced attacking role, closer to the penalty area. His movement, his off-the-ball anticipation and intelligence and experience just continue to grow. If we're able to get him on the ball in advanced positions and he's able to carry and ping the ball into the area, he can create a bunch of chances and he can be decisive. So that is the player, I guess, more than others, who I'm looking to exploit, who I'm looking for to exploit the Real Madrid defensive vulnerabilities that are there, get the ball to Alvarez and let Alvarez go to work.
I'd like to throw in one thing that I thought was interesting that I read on intothecalderon.com, which was I think it was in the La Liga takeaways piece from the Rayo Vallecano game. And I'm just going to read a verbatim from your website. It says, including Wednesday, Atletico have scored inside the opening 15 minutes of a league game in 4 out of their 6 fixtures so far. They have been the first side to break the deadlock in all 6 games, and yet they have only won 2. I just throwing that in there because I think that's something on my radar in terms of you can kind of predict how the start of the game would go. The atmosphere, it's raucous, the energy. Atletico are going to try to score early, I think, and set the tone. And it'll be interesting to see if Real Madrid can weather that. Last question. Can you run us through your most probable starting 11?
I've been trying to run through this in my head for the last 36 hours. It's kind of a mix of what I think Simeone is going to do and what I hope he's going to do. So Oblak in goal, Pubil at right back. David Hansko at left back, Robin Lenormand and Clement Lenglet as the 2 center backs, Barrios and Koke in the middle. I think Conor Gallagher is going to start this game. I think he's a pretty good fit for how this game might evolve or devolve into some chaos. Just get into the box and try to create from there. So Barrios, Koke, Gallagher, and Llorente, kind of a midfield quartet. And then Alvarez and Griezmann up top. I think Griezmann is probably going to start. He's still Simeone's boy, even after all these years. That's kind of the direction I'm trending with the 11.
So we're about to dive into more of the Real Madrid side of this preview over on Jeremy's podcast, the Atletico podcast, that Atleti podcast. Also, tomorrow's post-game show is only for members. So make sure, if you're not a member yet, you sign up before tomorrow, patreon.com/Managing Madrid. If you're on YouTube, you can also hit join on the memberships tab of this YouTube channel. Jeremy, can you run down where people can go to see the preview on your channel?
Absolutely, man. Go to youtube.com. You can find us at that Atleti podcast. The channel is growing. We started the show in April. We just passed 300 subscribers on the channel, so things are looking good and looking up, entering El Derby. You can find us there. You can find my work at intothecalderon.com. We're going to have complete pre- and post-game coverage of El Derby Madrileño tomorrow.
Awesome. See you guys on that Atleti podcast later today. And thank you guys for tuning. Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.